In the world of ocean conservation, big problems often arise while people are looking elsewhere. Such is the case today with the global squid fishery, which consists of hundreds of vessels fishing for the species, largely in unregulated waters around the world. A significant portion of this fleet fishes exclusively at night, using an array of bright lights to lure squid toward the surface where they are snagged with barbed lures and hauled on board. These lights are so intense that they are visible in images of Earth taken from space, particularly when vessels amass in fertile fishing grounds. But despite that luminescence and the high volume of fishing, many of these vessels are operating in the dark, so to speak, due to limited regulation of the international squid fishery. Now new research sheds light on this activity, where it is occurring, which countries are doing the fishing, and how much they are catching, and concludes that this sector of the fishing industry needs much greater oversight. New research reveals expanding footprint of global squid fishing fleet. In March 2023, Science Advances published a new study, Fishing Through the Cracks: The Unregulated Nature of Global Squid Fisheries, which found that in 2020 squid fishing vessels around the world worked a combined 251,000 vessel days. These units of effort track the number of days vessels are active and equate to around 685 years worth of around-the-clock activity. Those numbers are up 68% from the 149,000 vessel days fished in 2017. The study was carried out under a research partnership between Global Fishing Watch, the University of California, Santa Cruz, the Australian National Centre for Ocean Resources and Security, and the Japan Fisheries Research and Education Agency, and focused on 4 areas: the Southwest Atlantic Ocean, Northwest Indian Ocean, and the Northwest and Southeast Pacific Ocean. To learn which vessels were fishing where and when, the authors combined data from vessels' automatic identification system transponders and from a satellite technology called the Visible Infrared Imaging Radiometer Suite, which shows those bright lights on the ocean at night. They then compared this activity to areas of competence for national and regional fisheries management bodies and squid regulations to determine how much fishing was happening in unregulated areas. China's distant water fishing fleet makes up the bulk of light luring vessels examined for this study. 1,123 of the 1,394 vessels studied, and accounted for 4 million hours of fishing, or 92% of all the fishing tracked. This helps explain why China reported that in 2020 its vessels landed 520,300 metric tons of squid, the country's #1 catch for the year, ahead of tuna, with 327,400 metric tons landed. Other major squid fishing countries include the Republic of Korea, Chinese Taipei, and Japan. Unregulated fishing of any species poses numerous problems. The first one is somewhat obvious. The absence of controls on the quest for profit will invariably lead to over-exploitation of the target species. Second, unregulated spaces are often directly adjacent to regulated ones. For example, coastal states' exclusive economic zones, EEZs, which means fishers in relatively small artisanal boats end up competing with huge industrial vessels fishing just outside the EEZ boundary. Unregulated fishing therefore exacerbates inequity for traditional and small-scale fishers, as well as for developing coastal states that depend on revenue from commercial fishing. In many cases, unregulated catch is not reported or incorporated into estimates of fishing effort, harvest, or stock status, making it difficult to ascertain whether the fishing is sustainable. Further, unregulated fishing is subject to considerably less scrutiny than regulated activities, and as such, is more likely to be associated with questionable labor practices, human rights violations, and other crimes. Despite its substantial harm to fish populations, marine ecosystems, artisanal fishers, and coastal communities, unregulated fishing has received little attention in recent years compared to that of illegal fishing. The study authors were careful to note that they were not implying that the vessels and crews fishing for squid in unregulated waters were doing anything illegal, and that it is the areas of ocean, not the vessels themselves, that are unregulated. Among other important findings, the research quantified how highly mobile light luring squid fishing vessels are more than half of those studied operated in multiple regions many times a year. The fleets are also highly nomadic, with vessels moving globally between management areas based on licensed fishing seasons and seasonal abundances and migratory patterns of their target species. Scientists and policymakers have expressed concern over the declining abundance of squid stocks globally and regionally. The light luring vessels also stay at sea on average for 3 months to 1 year at a time, far longer than the average fishing trip for other commercially fished species. They are able to do that because of support from refrigerated carrier vessels which rendezvous with the squid fishes in the open ocean to take on the catch and resupply them with food and fuel. This is important because it facilitates near-constant fishing and puts added pressure on the squid population, which experts believe is in decline, both globally and in each of the areas studied. Highlighting this concern, the study found that fishing pressure in the Northwest Indian Ocean and Southwest Pacific Ocean, areas with no management of squid fishing, increased from 2017 to 2020, while fishing pressure in the Northwest Pacific Ocean, where there is at least some oversight of the activity, remained static during that time. In particular, in the Northwest Indian Ocean, fishing effort increased rapidly from 13,000 to 56,000 vessel days from 2017 to 2020, and the number of vessels working there jumped more than fourfold, from 57 to 250. Overall, although some conservation and management measures are in place around the world to regulate squid fishing, the study concluded that fleets may take advantage of fragmented regulations to maximize catch. And there certainly are suggestions that unregulated squid fishing is contributing to declines in the species' numbers. For example, in 2020 the Chinese government placed restrictions on its own squid fleet in certain places and for limited times, presumably out of concern that they were catching too many squid. Also, in February 2023 the South Pacific Regional Fisheries Management Organization, SPRFMO, adopted a measure that will limit fishing effort, which caps how much vessels can fish for squid in the region it covers, the high seas of the South Pacific Ocean. Effort limits can manifest in a variety of ways, for example, the number of vessels in the fishery, the capacity of the vessels, catch limits, or other factors that affect fishing efficiency. The SPRFMO action, which was proposed by a small handful of member states, indicates that the organization recognizes the threat that unchecked fishing poses to the squid population. Did you know that squid are important for our oceans? As both predator and prey, they play a key role as food for whales and other marine species, and perform vital functions that help keep the oceans healthy. But global demand for squid coupled with a lack of regulation has led to industrial overfishing. This not only threatens squid numbers, but harms the largest ecosystem on Earth, our oceans. It also impacts the livelihoods and food security for many coastal communities worldwide. Close-up of white and brown squid in a mass after being caught. Squid piled together on a squid boat in South Korea. Photo, Paul Hilton, Greenpeace. Squid play a vital role in ocean life. They are food for larger marine animals like dolphins, whales and sea lions, alongside coveted fish like salmon and tuna, and some seabirds. Squid also act as biological pumps. As they eat and move across our oceans, they transport carbon and nutrients between marine ecosystems. This makes squid essential for healthy and functioning oceans, both now and for the future. Squid are sensitive to where they live. They thrive in good conditions, but their numbers go down in poor conditions. Though they produce many baby squid, they only breed once in their lifetime. Squid eyes are almost as complex as human eyes, and the largest eyes in the animal kingdom belong to giant squid and colossal squid. This helps them see into the darkness of the ocean for food. They can change the color, pattern and texture of their skin to blend into their surroundings. This also helps them communicate with each other. Squid fishing boats, or jiggers, have huge lights that flood the ocean to attract squid to the surface. To catch the squid, they release specialist fishing lines that are pulled up and down in the water by machines. This motion is why they're known as jiggers. On an industrial scale, huge numbers of jiggers gather close together to fish, which is where the problems start. In short, the squid industry has grown so big that it's now threatening ecosystems around the entire world. Unchecked growth not only impacts the species, but the entire marine ecosystem. Greenpeace investigations have shown how unregulated fishing outside national waters is threatening squid numbers. With no global regulations or monitoring systems in place currently, it's often a free-for-all. This means that jiggers can fish with very few checks and no controls over the size of their catch. Coupled with that, the demand for squid has led to a rapid increase in how many squid fisheries are operating. This has meant that areas like the Northwest Indian Ocean saw an 800% increase in jiggers in the last 5 years. And in other areas, like the Southwest Atlantic, armadas of 500 ships work together to plunder the ocean. The sheer numbers of boats in such a small space means that, at night, the lights they emit can be seen from space. Industrialized fishing impacts coastal communities too, many of whom may have fished sustainably for generations. In 2019, just 3 fishing countries were responsible for almost 60% of the global squid catch. This makes it harder to make a living in many of these communities, and results in greater food insecurity. Our oceans are being industrialized. It's wiping out populations of marine life and altering the ecosystems on which our lives depend. The lack of control over the huge, and growing, squid fishing industry is a clear example of why the current rules to protect the global oceans are failing. This would regulate harmful industries, like squid fishing, and allow us to create a worldwide network of ocean sanctuaries. Doing this would mean we can protect wildlife, safeguard people's livelihoods and food sources, and keep our oceans healthy for generations. Squid are a highly sought-after target species in many parts of Australia as they make excellent bait and also taste great. They can be caught year-round, however most areas have a seasonal influx of squid, and the giveaway that there are squid being caught is the ink found on jetties, pontoons, rock walls and other structure, along with the explosion of squid pics across social media. Like many species, prime times to target squid include a few hours around sunrise and sunset, when the squid hunt more actively. However, squid can be caught throughout the day, where in some areas they will move close to structure in deeper water, commonly up to 20 feet during the daylight hours, requiring weights on your squid jigs or paternoster rigging of your squid jig to fish them effectively, while in other areas they will hold in shallower water, again holding close to structure, such as weed beds, shoals, rocks, depressions and ledges in the bottom, and jetties. The key here is structure. Structure where the squid can ambush prey, take shelter from predators and lay their eggs. Whether in a vessel on the water or fishing land-based, focusing your efforts around structure such as weed beds, rock bars and rock walls, shoals, headlands and jetties provides you with your best chance of landing a few. At times fishing for squid can be very visual and they can be sight cast, however during the brighter periods of the day you will often need to get your jig down deeper and close to structure as the squid retreat back to shelter. During lower light conditions, artificial light found around jetties, pontoons, bridges and boat ramps, along with street lights close to the water, can attract squid. This light attracts prawns and baitfish and in turn attracts squid that are hunting for a meal. At times squid can be spotted and sight cast to, while at other times you need to focus your casts around structure, while also targeting the edge of the shadow line where the artificial light fades to darkness. Squid will often hunt along this shadow line and you will see the disturbance as they attack bait from the cover of darkness. When it comes to gearing up for squid fishing, light spinning rods and reels are the preferred option, loaded with light braided line, such as Platypus P8 or Platinum Plus around 10 pounds, finished with a rod length of 8 to 12 pounds stealth fluorocarbon leader. A 20 to 30 size reel with a smooth drag will hold plenty of line and control the surges of the squid while minimizing the chances of tearing jigs from hooked squid. When fishing land-based, a longer rod gives you additional casting distance, along with control and leverage around rocks and other structure. When fishing from a boat, rod length is less important. However, a rod designed for squid fishing is still a good option as they are designed with a balanced action for casting squid jigs, have plenty of power in the bottom half of the rod, and a tip section that is responsive enough to cast and work your jigs effectively, while still being soft enough to manage the surges of large squid, while minimizing the chances of tearing the jigs from the hooked squid. Squid jigs come in a range of sizes, commonly 2.5 to 4.0, with a size 3.0 seemingly a good starting point in most areas. They can be attached directly to your leader with a knot, or some anglers prefer to use a clip, making it quick and easy to change colors or sizes. Other accessories that anglers use include glow sticks, placed above the jig to attract squid, and floats, a just a bubble, to attach a squid jig to and leave it suspended above structure to attract squid. Some anglers will fish with one jig actively and have a second jig suspended under a float to attract squid that follow a hooked squid, as well as squid actively hunting in the area. Boat and kayak anglers can have a float line drifting out the back while they fan casts ahead of the drift. This drift line may be a smaller, lighter squid jig to minimize snagging, or may be suspended under a float, depending on the depth and drift speed. Most squid, however, are hooked on the line being actively fished to
Kayak udah ngoni kira sadiki nih cumi apa minum bir mati kalau mati. Itu ada ipar itu.